Hello, everyone, and welcome to my wellness channel. My name is Kathi and I am a holistic integrative therapist. I specialize in inner healing work using prayer, emotion code, sound tuning therapy, and acupressure. Today, I'm so happy to speak with and introduce you to Nikki Swartz. We are so very happy for Nikki to be here today. And I'm excited because I met Nikki through sound tuning fork therapy. And we have been together every week ever since, working on each other. And she's been sharing with me so many good nuggets that we have to get this information out to y'all because it is just so good. So I want to explain just a little bit that Nikki has her certification in hypnosis therapy, and as a NLP practitioner, she will explain that, and also sound tuning therapy. And at the end of this, I want to come back and share with you the nuggets that she gave me in hypnosis. Today, our focus is going to be on hypnosis. And also her contact information will be down below. So stay tuned to the very end. You will not want to miss anything. So Nikki, thank you for being here today. I want to ask you some things today about, like, a little bit about yourself, how you got into hypnosis, who does hypnosis and for what reason, and the purpose and all of that. So thank you. Welcome. The floor is all yours. Yes.
Thank you so much, Kathi. I'm very honored and humbled to be here with you today and all your viewers, which is wonderful and an honor. Gosh, I guess, it could be a long story, but I will make it short. I have a long history of trauma, childhood trauma and abuse. I was misdiagnosed with some mental illness. I was misdiagnosed with bipolar, anxiety, ADHD, and depression. And so for years and years, like 26 years, I was mismedicated, seeing different, this doctor, that doctor, a medication guinea pig. And in that whole roller coaster, also self-medicating, with drugs and alcohol. And so about 6.5, almost 7 years ago, I turned my will and my life over to the care of God, as I understand him, and got clean. And I've been on a path of healing ever since. And I really was interested and fascinated by how the mind worked. Like, how did I get where I was? What had happened to me? And that's an important question, instead of, saying like, what's wrong with this person? Like, what happened to that person is a much better question to ask, because what happens to us as children forms us as adults. And it's the programming that, that runs all of our decisions from underneath the surface, from the subconscious mind. And so understanding, that I was raised in an abusive home, and I was constantly in a state of unsafe place, a state of fight or flight. I didn't know some days where, when we were going to eat again, or, if the electricity was going to be on when we got home, or if I was going to get beat for something, so how does that translate into an adult who is now, suffering all of these? I was so depressed and codependent and just all over the place, a mess, and how does can somebody like that heal? How could I be normal ever again? Is there ever even an opportunity for that? And so it began my healing journey. I was kind of fed up with traditional medicine, psychiatry and stuff. I was fed up with being prescribed pills that didn't work, that had horrible side effects, that, were worse than what the symptoms they were supposed to be helping me with. And I know a lot of people can relate to this because there's millions of people like this out here.
Yes.
And as I began to heal, and as I began to, you know, it was a combination of mind, body, spirit, you know, the cleaning up my body, the working on my mental health, and then the spiritual aspect through working the steps of Narcotics Anonymous. All of those played a part, really. But I came to this probably about like 2 years ago. I came to this wall. I was at this wall where I was like, I'm on this medication. I'm on psych meds for this and that, and I'm not getting any, I'm still having symptoms. I was having flashback after flashback, and I was just riddled with anxiety and depression and, you know, just a mess, basically. And so my husband had gotten hypnotized to quit smoking, and it worked. And so I decided that I was going to get hypnotized for the emotional eating and the flashbacks, because I definitely had changed transferred my addiction to food now, you know, as a way to cope from these traumas that I hadn't. That's really what it was at the base of all of this was my trauma that was unprocessed, that nobody had worked with me through in talk therapy. And in one session with this hypnotherapist, let me preface this because 3 days before going in, I was like, I'm going to try to be as fresh as possible. So I'm not going to take these medications. You know I can go 3 days without depression medication and without my bipolar medication before I start to feel all wonky and like emotional. So I was like, I want to be as fresh as possible. So I stopped and I went and I got hypnotized, and I left that day, and I never picked up those medications again. I never needed them again.
Wow.
I know, it was amazing. And it was just a whole new level of emotional intelligence. I felt like I had a whole new awareness and awakening of like, I can breathe. I was free, you know? And so I was so impressed. And over the next few months, I ended up losing like 20 pounds. It was easier. I wasn't, you know, compulsively eating. It did take more sessions. It wasn't a one and done. That's really important to know, that this has actually been a process for me. But that first session really impacted me so much that I said, I have to learn this. And I was like, I was inspired in that moment. I said, this is it. This is what I've been looking for. As you suggested, the tissues, because here I am feeling choked up. Because this was what I was waiting for. This was the freedom that I needed. And so the reason why this worked so well, right, is because from the age of 0 to 7, we form all our core beliefs. Our mind, our brain is literally in a state of hypnosis and a theta alpha brainwave state. And it doesn't change to beta, which is cognitive. You and I talking right now is a beta state. It doesn't change to that. It doesn't begin to like click on until about 8 years old. So in these first 7 years of life, we form all our core beliefs, and everything to a child is black and white. It is literally yes or no, black or white, you know? So it's like, they are influenced by the people that are around them the most, your parents, your teachers, you know, whatever. If you were sat in front of the TV as your babysitter, whatever environment you're in is the environment that you learn from. You have mirror neurons in the brain, and you literally mirror what you see. And that's why, you know, that old saying, parents say, do as I say, not as I do.
Not as I do.
They will always do as you do.
Exactly.
Always, every time, because
it's not what you're saying, it's what you're doing.
Yes. And the child is going to, you know, mirror that. And so all that I knew was fight or flight. All that I knew was a violent home, a yelling, screaming, violent mother who was unpredictable, who was a victim of her own trauma. And so I hold no ill will towards my mother at all. God love her and God rest her soul. She, did the best she could with what she had. And so,
That's healing right there.
yeah,
That's healing
that's
right
healing.
there.
It is. And that comes also with a level of responsibility where I had to say, okay, I'm no longer going to live in this story of I was abused by my mother, I was a victim. No, I'm going to live in the empowered, I'm healed state. That's a story that no longer, that's healing, is when that story no longer triggers that that emotional response, and I can talk about this with you today and not triggered, that is what
beautiful
the healing looks like. And so that's the work that I do now with other people. So I help to facilitate that just as a guide. That's all we are, right? We're just a guide for them to do really their own healing, their own inner healing. And so because this child, right, from 0 to 7 learns all its core beliefs, at age 8, the critical mind forms, and it kind of blocks off that direct access to the subconscious mind. And so now, in order to get through to the subconscious mind, you would have to overload it with message units. And it's kind of got more critical function now coming online, where you have cognitive abilities like reasoning and logic and willpower, the ability to make decisions, things like that, right? And so that begins to come online, and a child uses that more. And so now all those core beliefs are being stored in the subconscious mind, and that subconscious programming stays with that child all the way through the rest of their life. Just like it says, raise a child in the way that he should go, and he will not depart from it. Because that is why, because those core beliefs are locked in there. So imagine if you can think about a child like myself who was never in a safe place, never able to thrive, never able to feel safe, always in fight or flight. When you're in fight or flight, the frontal lobes, where those places where you can have the ability to reason and logic and willpower and do, homework and learn things at school, they're offline. That's switched off. Every time we go into fight or flight, the frontal lobes literally shrink, and all the resources move to our arms and our legs for fight or flight. So to be in a constant state like that is not only detrimental because of the cortisol being released, but their learning can't happen either. It's a wonder. Sometimes I wonder how I'm not like blah, 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 blah. But and praise God that I'm not,
Just amazing.
It really is. And I see my story now. I see that, everything that I went through, I had to go through so that I could be here today to help somebody else.
It's such a qualification in a huge way at your school. So painful.
Yeah.
But the joy that comes, that only he can give, of the exchange. I call it the exchange. But these different modalities we do, Nikki, is exactly that, to help people through to the exchange. And hypnosis, I have never met anybody before you. I never understood it. I didn't know how it worked. And maybe you can get a little bit into that.
Sure.
How it actually works. I so appreciate what you shared on, the development. Then, how does it work?
All right. Yeah. So that critical mind that blocks off that access to the subconscious mind, right?
Yeah.
Companies spend millions of dollars a year to figure out how to get past that critical mind and get you to buy, get you to purchase, get you to believe in whether it be the need for love and belonging, I'll be this status if I have this, or the fear of, oh my gosh, what if, And so as a hypnotherapist, we're trained to bypass that critical factor in a safe, relaxing way where you don't even realize that it's even happening, and I hypnotized you. You were very relaxed. You were very calm. I was gentle in my voice and my words. You were aware the entire time. Right. You weren't asleep. There was never a time where you felt out of control. You were in control the whole time, but you were very relaxed. And once that relaxation happens, the critical mind, as I am talking to you, and maybe mixing up my words, or maybe, you know, snapping my finger or making a sound, or, you know, I'm giving you suggestions, the critical mind begins to get overloaded with message units, and it opens the door to the subconscious mind, where then change can take place. So then I can go, and so what happens in the mind is the subconscious mind runs off known and unknown associations. We're hardwired in the mind to run away from the unknown, the scary, the stuff we don't know. And we are hardwired to go towards the things we do know, the pleasure, the things we're familiar with. So let's say, for instance, even that's what I was going to say, even if it's bad. So if you watched your parents smoke cigarettes, drink, whatever, to you, that is a positive familiar. That's familiar. Exactly. And so let's say you got attacked by a dog when you were a child. Now that's a negative. That's in there as a, we've got to run away from that. We're scared of dogs now. Right. So, but maybe somebody doesn't want to be scared of dogs anymore, or maybe somebody doesn't want to be afraid to public speak, or maybe, or have anxiety to take a test. You know what I mean? They don't know why, but they're getting all freaked out, because in the subconscious mind, it's seeing it as, this is a threat, scary, run, you know, and it shuts down the frontal lobe, puts all its resources into the arms and legs for fight or flight. And now you can't think right. You can't remember the answers to your tests. And you know what I mean?
Makes sense.
So it just kind of rolls into place. So what in hypnosis, what we do is we get you in that very relaxed state. And we've, of course, a hypnotherapist will have interviewed you first. You're most suggestible to yourself, to your own words. So we use your words back to you in hypnosis. When I ask you if I could wave a magic wand and make it all, you know, make everything you want happen, what would your life look like? I write those things down, and after we've removed the limiting beliefs in the beginning part of the hypnosis, we replace with those positive images, because the brain sees in images. So it doesn't know the difference. The mind doesn't know the difference between real and imagined. It doesn't. So that's why athletes visualize themselves winning the game. They get in meditation, they get calm, they get their brain waves calm in that theta alpha state, and they visualize winning and seeing the win, and they experience with all their senses. And that's what I do when I take somebody through the hypnosis. We experience it with all your senses. What are you feeling? What are you seeing? What are you smelling? You know, get that smile on your face, because you can't hold two opposing thoughts in the mind at the same time. You can't be anxious and happy at the same time. You know, you can't be fearful and joyful at the same time. So if I can get you to smile, smiling releases all of those endorphins, all those feel-good chemicals. So there it is. The chemical reaction is happening in the brain, changing the images from this subconscious image to this one.
I have a question on that. When somebody is in hypnosis, well, first they know, you know, with the interview, what you're going to be doing.
Yes,
that person knows what you're going to be working on, which is what if a person, the emptying of the cup, the emptying out of that emotion, is that found in hypnosis? Like, how can you put coffee in a cup that's got lemonade in it? It's kind of like, help me to understand, like, if a person's not ready and they still need some grieving time. Let's talk about grief for a moment. How would that work? How, like, you work through intuition. Have you come across that?
Absolutely have. Yeah. So there are a lot of people who are not ready. You know, they're not totally there. They know they want to change, but maybe they're still holding on to the story. They're still in it. They're still experiencing the grief, you know. If they're not ready, that's fine. We do it in a series I usually take people through a 12-week emotional release program where we use a combination of the hypnosis and the neuro-linguistic programming, the NLP, which is the study of human excellence, to release those beliefs in a light hypnosis state and replace with the new image. So the person—
This is a time thing. This
oh
is
yeah.
good.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
definitely takes
yeah.
time. This is not it's not an overnight thing. And that's what I want. You know, TV and stage hypnosis have sensationalized hypnotherapy a lot and given people like kind of the wrong idea about it. So there's there is that fun aspect. There is that, yeah, you can go and have the stage hypnotist do the show and it's fun, but there's a very serious aspect of it where we are going in and performing like literally kind of like brain surgery, but with your thoughts, with your beliefs. With your beliefs. Yeah, because those beliefs are driving your behaviors.
Yes.
Those beliefs are why you're overeating, are why you are, you know, have anxiety, are why you know, can't get it together. Those subconscious beliefs that are beyond your awareness. Yeah. That's what's running the show. And so neurons that wire together, fire together, right? So you have these neural networks in the brain. I like to refer to them like a highway. So let's take the habit of worry, because worry is just a habit. It's just thoughts keep coming. Okay. The brain is a thought-making machine. You have a choice on what thoughts you're going to pay attention to. And that's what I want people to know is ultimately you are not the mind. You are not this body. You are the soul that occupies this body. So you have a choice, but you've just you've not been aware of that choice. And so now let's bring awareness to the fact that you are in control. You are in charge, and you can choose which thoughts to pay attention to and which thoughts to give up.
That's right.
And so I would be remiss about doing any of these without giving you a tool. And I'll give you a tool to how to overcome intrusive thoughts before we finish. Okay. But so let's take this. So the brain, right? It basically is like a computer processor. It has a job, it has information that's input, it's mirrored its environment for years and conditioning. I am this way now, I have this personality. So I'm a worrier. I watched my mom worry. I watched my dad worry. I watched the people around me always complain and talk about how hard life is. And so this is my reality. This is what I see as normal, you know? So why would I'm going to do that too, right? I'm going to worry all the time, and I'm gonna, I hope this works out, and I'm gonna, you know, obsess and have all these thoughts, right? So that habit right there, if you could think of it like a super highway, right? Like I live near DC, and we have this huge beltway called 495, and it's 6 lanes on either side. So you've been practicing this worry habit for life, right? And so it's a 6-lane highway on either side, if you can imagine. It's only got on ramps. It's only on ramps. And these on ramps are all supporting this habit, you know, money, finances, health, relationship, work, this, pets, whatever you can. If you don't have this to worry about, your brain's going to find something else to worry about to support that habit of worry, right? So when the brain has had a habit so long, it puts it on autopilot because it cannot afford to burn the resources, the glucose, in order to do anything else. So it says autopilot beyond our awareness. It's now happening as like JavaScript. Yeah, it's like JavaScript in a computer running in the background, right? Wow. So when we want to do a new habit, when we want to make a new habit, we want to stop worrying. Like, I'm tired of this. Why am I spending this mental energy worrying when I could be enjoying myself? But the brain is already hardwired to do this worry. So you literally have to forge a new road. You have to build a new highway. And this new highway starts off as a little tiny dirt road. And so what happens is the mind, this is with anything. You can do this with exercise, eating right, any new habit that you're trying to do, that you're trying to put into effect. The mind is going to say, okay, we'll do this for a little while. Let's see, you want to do this. And then it's going to be like, I know, right? I have to burn resources for this. Like, why are we working out? What is this? You know, and before you know it, you're right back into the super highway of where you were. So
Okay.
you might start this, I'm going to think positive and I'm going to be, and then right before you know it, you're right back to something happens. All of a sudden, something manifests and you've got all these new worries. And so you're pulled back, and then you have to forge the new highway again. And then you're pulled back. And then so you have to, but the brain, I will tell you, it will throw everything at you, including the kitchen sink, to try to keep you the same, to keep you from burning that resource. But if you stick to it, if you keep saying, no, this is what we're going to do. No, the subconscious mind has to submit because it cannot afford to burn the resources, and it has to put the new habit on autopilot. And before you know it, that old superhighway begins to shrink and the new habit begins to build because you are consistent. And so that consistency, where the hypnotherapy comes in, is that consistency makes that faster, that change, instead of you just on the roller coaster back and forth, trying to build a new road back onto the highway,
Yes.
back on the highway. The hypnosis comes in and helps change that imaging to streamline that. So you don't have to spend years. I mean, I don't know how many years I spent trying to change.
And this is why cognitive therapy only goes so far as 10% of the brain. That's how far it will go. 10%. And people spend thousands of dollars, hundreds of dollars in therapy for getting into 10% of your brain.
Yeah, getting into just that. That's it. Yeah.
And so this is beautiful because a lot of it is subconscious. And I work with belief system, but I'll tell you, after 15 years of working with belief system, I haven't seen a lot of good results.
Yeah.
And that's because the subconscious is behind it all.
Yep. That 90% is behind it all. That 90%
behind it all.
Yeah.
And so if we can go in and tap in and erase that, literally erase it.
And begin to change it. And while you're in that relaxed, open state, that's where real change starts to happen faster than it would have done. You're not broken. You don't lack willpower. Willpower only lasts so long. You're only using that one little tiny 10% of the brain. That's where the willpower lives in 10% land. It doesn't live in 90% land.
That's it.
So there's nothing wrong with you. People are walking around like, the worst possible thing, if I could just stress anything, is to do not feel guilty or ashamed. Do not carry that guilt and shame in your heart because you didn't get it right again. It's so important to not assign guilt to that. And the ego, the inner critic, it wants to assign guilt. Oh, you fucked up, or you messed up again.
It's okay.
But my inner critic is really mean, my inner critic is this mean old, I call her the crazy lady in the attic, and she's real mean, and she comes out of the attic and she's like, rah, you get, when you compartmentalize like the inner child, she needs to be nurtured. She needs to be loved. She needs to know that it's safe. It wasn't ever safe when I was a child. So I literally have to several times, even during the day, if I get one of those thoughts, or a flashback or something, I have to say, okay, this is coming up because it's time to be healed. All right. In this moment, I imagine hugging that little girl, even the younger version of me, and saying, you know what, you did the best you could with what you had. I love you and you're safe. And just loving myself.
Nikki, you gave that to me. Nobody in all the years of therapy I've done and received in 35 years, nobody gave me that. You gave me that.
Thank you.
And I'll never forget. I'll never forget you and what you gave me. And I will share right now because we're talking about it, and you can talk in detail if you want, explaining it. But the testimony that I have is when Nikki took me in a room, and it was just me. And then when she sat me down in this room, she said, over to the corner is a child, and I want you to look at her. And I knew without explanation that child was me. And there were no words exchanged. Only what Nikki had me do is bringing that child over onto my lap. And the words cannot explain how I was feeling about that child, because that hurting child was still alive in me. And so there were no words needed. And I held that child as long as, you know, my session allowed. But I have to tell you, Nikki, you brought me beautifully out of that. But for 3 days, I cried because the child was holding on to, and I don't know to this day what it was about. Probably because it doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is that that child is held. That child is now connected to pure love, and whatever that child needed.
Yeah.
I can give that child now, anytime I click in, like you said, I click in this day, is this an inner child thing that I'm feeling right now? Is it something that she needs? You think about what you need during the day, right? But people, listen, think about what that inner child needs at that moment. Ask yourself, ask inside, does it need to be held right now? Does it need to be comforted? This is the best gift. Thank you.
You're so welcome. Love heals all. And that's what we're talking about here, is giving love.
Yes.
To that child that didn't get it. We grew up in a time where they said, let the child cry it out. Don't go to the child. And they now have scientific proof and evidence that that causes horrible, horrible behavioral problems, abandonment, depression, abandonment issues. Always, especially in the first 2 years, hold that child, love that child, go to that child and hold that child when it cries. And so it's the love, it's the you reparenting yourself. What you didn't get, your parents didn't get. Yeah, they did the best they could with what they had, you know.
And now so, you can.
And now you have the tools. Yes. And just like with the inner child, right? You love the inner critic. That voice that's coming at you, you know, you did this, this, and this, or when it points its ugly fingers in, it tears you apart, and then it's really happy to point those fingers elsewhere at somebody else and tear them apart and judge them. But really, that inner voice is coming. It has a positive intent. It's trying in its own weird, messed up way to keep you safe. Right? So we say to the inner critic, thank you. I know that you have a positive intent. I know that you mean well. I love you. I appreciate you, but I got this. We're good. You know what I mean? And that's those two tools. Those two things are really powerful tools. And then there's also, I want to share the cancel technique. Okay. We have ruminating thoughts, those worry thoughts, right? I mean, your brain can get carried away, and before you know it, you're in a full-blown movie in your mind where you are the director, the starring actor, the supporting cast. You have all kinds, you know what I mean? And you have had this whole thing you've elaborated, and it's not even really happened in reality, but you have made it up, you know?
Yeah.
And so I immediately, I give all my clients this is what we started with in the beginning. We are going to begin to train the mind to what to think, right? So we say cancel out loud. You're interrupting the neural networks from firing when you say cancel out loud. Now, if you're in front of people, I get it, say it in your mind. But if you're alone, you know, or whatever, cancel that. Now, whatever we take away, we've got to replace, remember? So you replace it with something positive that the subconscious mind will believe. So my go-tos are this: cancel, everything's going to be okay. Cancel, all my needs are met. Cancel, I love you. Just really like simple things. And I'm telling you, when I first started the cancel technique, and I got it from, it's not my invention. I got it from Letting Go, The Pathway of Surrender by Dr. David R. Hawkins. It's a phenomenal book that changed everything for me. But he taught this technique. And so we have to give something simple the subconscious mind will believe. And you begin, I was doing this in the beginning, I was doing this cancel technique like constantly. It was all I did. I was like, holy cow, all I do all day long is cancel things. But that was because prior to that, it was beyond my awareness. I wasn't aware that I could change those thoughts. I wasn't aware that I had the choice. I thought I was just, this is my brain, this is how it's working. I didn't know how to, tame it, like
Exchange it out.
and change it out and update that programming. A belief is just something that you are told or told yourself over and over again until the subconscious mind accepted it as truth. Yeah. So really look at those beliefs, and some of the behaviors. So if you take your behavior, right, and you say, okay, I'm acting out in this way, I realize that I am emotional eating. What's at the core of that? Is the inner child hungry for attention? Is the inner child hungry for affection? Does it need that? Is that, is that hunger in the lower belly? Because if it's in the second chakra, that's your love and belonging. That's your relationship to yourself. And so if it's not in the solar plexus where your stomach actually is, then you're not really hungry. You are wanting up. You are wanting attention. You are wanting acceptance and love and belonging.
Yes.
So the cancel technique is one of the, it's an awesome tool. And you can really begin to, I can't even explain how much it's changed for me, because I was such a negative person, and just, all I was exampled my whole life, all I was modeled was yelling, screaming, angry person, and I knew I didn't want to be that way.
Right.
To the point, Kathi, where I gave both my children up for adoption because I was afraid to be like my mother. And I just knew if that somebody else could raise them, that they would be okay. And they were, and they're both back in my life now, and God healed all those relationships.
That's wonderful.
And it's just phenomenal. Like, it's really a miracle, So,
beautiful.
Yeah. So I don't mean to get off on a tangent there.
No, that's beautiful, Nikki. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, no worries.
And you shared about what it's about and how and why. That is so, so good. So the purpose of its role is really, like we said, is to exchange it out, get back into what the mind is on that highway, getting like no more access to that highway is by building that new highway, but first canceling so that you can build that new highway successfully and not have those highs and lows so much. I like that. Now, we talked earlier before we came on about people who are suffering, especially in regular therapy. We want to get this invitation out to y'all. Her contact information is going to be down below. We're talking about, and even if you haven't been through a lot of trauma, okay, those people, we really want to reach the trauma, the addiction, all of that. But if somebody's just not happy, with themselves, and maybe that child, like myself, that really I needed to tap into that. We want to reach all. We just want to say it's invited to all. I don't think there's not one issue on the table that really can't be addressed. And I do want to talk with you, not just with the hypnosis, but the other things that we do. And it's powerful result also. So I'll leave it to you at this point to expand on that.
Okay. You mean going into the other modalities that we do?
That and reaching the invitation, reaching out, how you do the consult, do that first, and then we'll talk about the other.
Okay. So when somebody initially contacts me, my website is livinginthesolution.net. Living in the Solution, Mind, Body, Wellness is the name of my business. You can contact me at info@livinginthesolution.net. And what we do is we have an initial consultation that is completely free. We spend about 20 to 30 minutes going over your history and what you're going through and what you'd like to work on. And based on that assessment is how I'll determine which modalities we're going to use. And it's generally a combination of all three. I'm always, because I'm a Reiki master teacher as well, so I'm always channeling the Reiki, always, no matter what I'm doing, whether I'm hypnotizing somebody or giving them a biofield tuning session, I'm always channeling the Reiki. But some people do want to come to me and just receive Reiki, and that's very good for somebody who is in a very acute state. They might be too sensitive to have like a tuning is more a little more aggressive. And so if somebody's in really an upset, acute state, they're just in the middle of it, then Reiki is what I recommend. It's going to calm them right down, get them back in their body, get them, each chakra balanced, and then they can probably come for a tuning, and just in doing this work in the time that I have, I've recognized the need for what you and I do is the adrenal reset. And I'd like to talk about that, the adrenal rhythm reset that we do with biofield tuning, because when we are most of the people are chronically in a state of fight or flight. So let's talk about what that is. When you are in fight or flight, the body prepares to literally fight or run. And so not only does the frontal lobe shut down and the blood and all the resources go to arms and legs, but the adrenals that sit on top of the kidneys get turned on. And when we, as a society, not only are we in this constant state of stress, which causes this fight or flight state, we're over caffeinating ourselves. We're doing the energy drinks, the sodas, the coffee, all of this caffeine that's also, turning it on, and it just doesn't shut off. The adrenals get stuck on. And so I have started to just, when somebody signs up with a 12-week program with me, 4 of those weeks are going to be spent biofield tuning. The first one is a regular session, because you have to have 1 regular session in order to receive adrenal reset. And then the other 3 are intermixed in the hypnotherapy, the 12 weeks, where we do 3 adrenal resets. And I have found, Kathi, that helps my clients so much. Like, people have come off medication, they have a whole new baseline stress level. They've, like I myself even have come off of coffee. I've come off of my sleep meds. I've been able to let go of the medical marijuana that I was taking for the PTSD. So yeah, I've been able to come down to 2 prescriptions because of the adrenal resets that we've done together. So, that I can't say enough good things about the adrenal resets done.
I love how you package that together, and that makes so much sense, because everybody's got a different prescription, and to know when to do what on a 12-week program, that is just wonderful. I'm going to give that a lot of thought. I want to just say to my Christian friends out there that get so freaked out over certain words without really understanding what it means, and that is the word Reiki. Okay, so let me just explain, and Nikki will confer with this. Your energy fields in the center of your body is a real thing, like liver and kidneys and heart and lung. Just like any other organ, it is real, and they spin. Okay, and once they stop spinning, the energy is not flowing. And if your energy is not flowing, you're not moving too fast, and you're depressed, you don't want to do anything. That's energy. And God designed it to where they spin for a reason. And when all of the fields are open in the center, it spins like a crazy 8, all the way up and all the way down. Okay, so if it's trying to move out to the organs and feed, this is all emotional based. Also mental and emotional based. The chakras, the energy fields, they get stuck because of our emotional state or mental state. So this is why Chinese medicine integrates the emotions in with the body. They know this. They know why it works and how it works. So the protocol of how to keep these chakras open and spinning is so phenomenal. And when somebody is doing it on you and helping you to do it, and I worked my very first client 15 years ago, she was on lithium for almost 40 years. And she was completely shut down. She could not, even if I taught her hand, right hand over left on each chakra, her chakras were not opening up. So it took both of us. It took my hands, my energy over hers, and they were opened. Then she was able to keep them open and did her energy exercises. And every time I saw her after that, they were just like this. She slept for the first time in 40 years all night after we did energy balancing. There is something about it. I hope that whoever's listening would be really, really open to learn. This stuff works. It works. So
I have an interesting story for you, Kathi, and for anybody who might be have concerns about that. So Reiki was originated in Japan, and there was a very small village, a community in Japan that was very fascinated with how Jesus healed, the hands-on healing. And they began studying it. And I don't know if you're aware, but Jesus spent a lot of his years over in the Middle East and in the Eastern countries. There's a huge portion of his life missing out of the Bible, and he spent a lot of time away over there. So they were fascinated with how he did the hands-on healing. And so they wanted to learn that. And so they started to study how Jesus healed. And that's how Reiki originated. So people don't know that. I was unaware of it as well when I decided to take the Reiki 1 practitioner course. And I was like, oh, wow, that makes so much sense, because I'm a Christian. I love Jesus, but I am open-minded. And I know that a lot of things were suppressed in order because of corruption. So there were a lot of old practices that were labeled as bad, witchcraft, things that you shouldn't do, but they really just wanted more control over people. And that was in the dark ages where, a lot of corruption happened in the church. And so there's this cellular memory, we remember in our souls being persecuted for questioning those things. And that's why we still don't really do it today. It's beliefs passed down. And somewhere in our cellular memory, we remember being persecuted for those things. And so people fear it on a cellular level, but you have to be open enough to say, you know what, let me learn more about this. Let me, my first Reiki experience, I'll tell you, I had been hit by a car while riding my bike. Yeah. And I was in pain. And I was in physical therapy. I was getting acupuncture. I was getting a massage. And I had a little Japanese massage therapist. And he says, I wasn't getting acupuncture. I was just getting massage and physical therapy. And he says, you need acupuncture. And I was like, what is that? And he says, don't worry, you just go to this man. And he wrote down the name on a card, and it was this Chinese man he sent me to. And he said, don't worry, your insurance will cover it. And I said, okay. So I go and I lay on the table, and I'm about to get the first acupuncture needle put in my foot. And he goes to put it in, and I screamed. I was having panic attacks every single day from the pain I was in from the accident, right?
Wow.
And I was unable to relax. I was so tight. And he says to me, I can't give you acupuncture today. I'm going to have to give you Reiki. And I said, what's that? And he said, just lay down. It's okay. And he went around my body and held his hands over me, right? All the way around my body. And the heat that came off of his hands was unbelievable. And for the first time, Kathi, I swear to God, for the first time, I was able to be relaxed. I didn't have another panic attack after that.
Nice.
I was able to manage the pain better. And it was the thing that I needed. I was all like twisted up energetically. My body was so pained up and messed up that my chakras were closed down, shut off. And after that, I was able to receive the acupuncture. I was able to, you know, receive more of the healing. So definitely keep an open mind.
Story. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
How you can't negate the results.
No, you really can't.
No,
I was a true believer after that, you know.
Yeah. Well, I really thank you so much, Nikki. Thank you. I think our questions, if anybody's watching for the first time learning about hypnosis, I hope that you got fed well today. And we will certainly come back with you for any questions put down below. We're happy to address them. And we hope that you come back again. And we just wish you the very, very best to all of you out there in your healing journey.
Absolutely.
We want to be here for you, and call, email, whatever Nikki's going to put down below. We really want you to be able to contact her. And I thank you so much, Nikki.
Thank you, Kathi. I appreciate you.
God bless you, honey.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.